Chad Townsend.
What a great kick.
And Chad Townsend plays on. Plays to the whistle. Kicks away for Valentine Holmes. Canella's in again. Wow.
Yo, let's go. We're back, baby. Back. The Chad Townsend Show. First episode for 2021. And got a special guest today, man. Justin, the Scope, Horo, brother. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, brother. Been on mine, so I appreciate you inviting me on yours.
Fellow podcaster, mate. Mate, I'm flicking through YouTube last night, and I come up YKTR, Life of YKTR, and see Scope's face on the thumbnail, and I seen a photo of him rolling his ankle. Mate, what happened? It looked pretty brutal. I couldn't watch it a second time.
Yeah, I'm looking back at it now. I'm surprised I didn't break it. Like it was a really bad fall. We just spoke about it. I think having injured it so many times throughout my footy career, at this point I just think it's all scar tissue. Like it's just been hammered that much, which probably won't be good when I get older. But it's surprisingly feeling alright today. Like that was on Saturday. Wednesday today?
Yep.
So 4 or 5 days removed, and I'm sort of walking around and not too bad. I think I'll be able to run next week.
That's probably what a footy crew does to you, mate. Know how to rehab your ankle now, look after it.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I just chucked it. I smashed heaps of ice on it for the first couple of days.
Yep.
There's heaps of bruising. It looks all purple, but it probably looks worse than what it is. But yeah, just get on with it, mate.
Onwards and upwards.
Footy mentality.
100%. You'd be back in training the next day. You're still footy.
Yeah, 100.
Mate, Scope, having played in the NRL and Super League, obviously professionally now, doing a few things with YKTR Sports. Obviously, I'm a big fan of yours and the boys. Love what you guys do. But now being on the other side of the fence, like I guess conducting the interviews instead of being interviewed, how have you found that?
Yeah, really good, mate. It took a little bit to get used to it because I was never really like a top tier player, so I didn't really do too many interviews. I was never on any of the shows in the past, but I used to really enjoy watching them. I always thought sometimes the boys looked uncomfortable or they were put in compromising positions.
Definitely.
So when Ice talked about, his vision for YKTR Sports, me and him did a podcast together. He was, talking about, just starting up when I just got back from Super League, so the timing was perfect. He liked the way sort of our podcast went. So then he asked me, would I be interested in doing something like that, potentially getting the boys on, because he felt like he had a good gauge on the NRL, and there was a lot of that, but he felt like there was, knowing all the boys, how much we love NFL, which we'll touch on, NBA, all these sorts of different things, interest in other sports or outside of footy. We felt like there was a market there for that, and sort of ripped into it last year, really enjoying it. And really looking forward to this year. It's
funny how you say, well, not funny, but when you mentioned the word compromising position, especially yourself, like Polynesian background, and I played the Warriors for 2 years, and I saw a lot of young Polynesian players get interviewed, and even guys at Sharks, young, not really too confident in front of the camera, don't really know how to speak, because they're worried about the bad reputation that media has, and that's something that I really like what you boys are doing, where you can give a platform to guys who potentially, want to get stuff out there. And at the end of the day, I think as like a rugby league first grade player, alumni, whole family, like we kind of back each other up. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm a massive fan of it. I love what you're doing, brother. Keep it going.
Cheers,
so that's how you got into it. Future plans this year on the Scope podcast.
Yep.
Tell me how the Scope came about, the name, everything about it.
So the Scope's a bit of a G-up. We had it started as my media manager at Manly. I rocked up to one of those pre-game media huddles that you have, like just they pick 2 or 3 players.
Yep.
And our media manager was a bit of a character. Like we really got along with him. We'd even have a few beers with him after the game. It was one of the boys.
Cuzzo?
Not Cuzzo, this is before him. His name was Neil Evans. So we used to call him Gil from The Simpsons. You know Gil, like he's always down on. He's always got a hard luck story. That sums him up, right? So we used to call Stumpy Gil, and one day me and Kieran Foran were walking towards media scrum, and I went up first, and then Stumpy out of nowhere just goes, "Here he is, the horoscope," and so I I was caught off guard. I didn't know what was going on. Fozzie had a little fucking giggle to himself.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Oh, Horoscope, is that your nickname?" And I was like, "No, I've never heard that before in my life." And then so Fozzie liked it because he was there, and then I think Cherry picked up on it as well.
Yeah.
So those two boys sort of kept it going for a giggle, like just between the boys, but it was never like anything that we ever spoke about. And then once I got back, me, Ice, and Ches and a few of the Manly boys had become like probably the closest mates out of all, Jimmy Bureau and that. Ches was calling me Scope, and I was like, "What's that? Like, what do you keep calling him Scope for?" Because this is like fucking 2019-20, so like, still no, there's only two people that call me the Scope. And then Ice goes, "That's your fucking podcast name, the Scope, Horoscope, for sure." So I started off as the Horoscope and then got shortened to the Scope, and now it's like, no one calls me anything else now. It's either Scope or Skipper Scope for the Punters Club.
And that was my next point. Now you've even got the Scopes Punters Club.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. A bit of fun as well.
Yeah, same. Like as started off as a G up again. Last year, when I first started doing the podcast, I had a really good year punting on NFL the year before. And the boys in the fantasy group can attest to that. So I got a bit confident once I started doing my podcast. I was like, all right, I'm going to give you my best. Scope specials, right? And I couldn't have gone worse. Like, honestly, if I tried to pick losers, like, I couldn't. I think I went 2 from 20, mate, to start off with. This is like a range from horse racing, NFL, NBA, NRL, Super League. Like, I fucked up so bad that it became a running joke. The boys wanted to sack me, so we were going back and forth on Instagram having this little battle. So it was 3 versus 1. Even Chico gave up on me in the end, which he was on my side for a bit, but Chico ended up giving up.
Usually pretty solid.
Yeah, Chico had me back for a minute, but then because I kept on losing, and people must have been taking my tips and complaining about it. But then I started this whole stand by Scope sort of mentalities, and then it sort of stuck. And then people were like, "Fuck it, Scope, like give us your best, keep giving you tips, like you eventually turn it around." Yeah. To be fair, I haven't turned it around, but what I've done is I've created a cool little group now. We don't take it too seriously in there. It's on Facebook. Yep. We've got some really good punters that have done well. I think all we started doing was just putting multis. I give the punters everyday guys the opportunity. I've got a leadership group too. So in my leadership group, in the SPC leadership group, it's the Prez Munster. Yep. Toddy Carney's in there because he gets some mail, as you know. Probably you've seen a few of the WhatsApp groups. He gets some good mail every now and again. Yep. Who else? Normie's in there. Yep. Mutters is in there. The Cheese and the Prince of Penny, Nathan Cleary. So it gives the boys an opportunity to just mingling with the boys. So I give them two of them a chance to bet with. So just like Cleary might pick his best, and then 2 of the punters in the group that have done all right.
Yeah, I think that's mad. I think it's
put together a multi.
You create like a little community with guys who just like at the end of the day, you all like a beer and a punt. Yeah. And whether you're playing NRL or you're not, like. I
think it makes us feel. I think the thing that most people like, it makes us more relatable. Like definitely. Especially for the boys currently that are playing. I always tease that get up to no good and all that sort of stuff, which is true to a degree, but like I play it up as well.
It's all part of it.
Yeah. But to have the boys interacting with some of the better players in the competition, it's definitely a draw. It's like I'm thankful for the boys for chucking in those tips. Like once every 5 or 6 weeks, I might hit them up and go, "What do you like?" or whatnot. So yeah, it's going all right, mate. But it's a bit of fun. We always try to push that in the group. Like we always say that we're not experts. So we've got a kitty, which is going really well. It's up to about 10 grand now. Yeah, right. But like it was a kitty that me and Ice put together. Ice put some money from YKT. I put my own money into it. Yep. And then we just, hopefully I get to celebrate. We were supposed to celebrate with, about 100 of them, put on a bit of a spread, have a few beers with a few of the punters. Yeah. But with COVID, it's pushed everything back.
Yeah. Mate, that sounds unreal. I love that. All right, mate, quick question about... I guess the landscape of the NRL, from what has changed in your point of view from when you first debuted or when you first started your NRL professional career to now. Like what's different about the game in regards to obviously social media. Like there's so much more prevalence on social media and media nowadays. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I think that for the biggest thing for me is the players get to be themselves. Yeah. Especially the younger boys. It was when I was sort of coming through. If you especially at Manly, like with the culture with the older boys, like if you were I did an interview with Foz at one time. It's so cringy, but like I got fucking roasted for like they hammered me, and it put me off doing all media altogether. Like I didn't want to do anything like that again. It was a funny little Fox Sports thing that we did, and it was so cringe. It was like it was so bad. But like back in those days, like I was even nervous going into it, not because I was nervous to get in front of the camera. I was like, fuck, what are the older boys going to say about this? So I think now with a few more podcasts like what we're doing, some of the boys having more avenues outside of footy, which is good. I think, obviously Kempy's a big part of that, like the wave that he started. He's been an entrepreneur, and Ice is another big one too. I think, them two in particular have made it possible for younger players to have interests outside of footy. I know my cousins like Dylan and Malachi Watanez-Lesniak. You've got the Cronulla Beer Co. KP's doing the Goosey. Like that stuff, I didn't hear about that stuff even back in 2010. So to see boys taking advantage of their platform, I think that's the biggest change for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. I think all those people you listed then have done, sort of set the standard and changed the culture in the way that, hey, it's okay to be yourself, and it's okay to go and do things that you like, show your own personality, have interests outside of football.
Yeah.
Because I would agree, like when I came to the NRL, it was, if you did anything like that, like the senior players, they'd roast you, like they'd get on top of you, and you'd be scared to do that stuff. But now it's definitely changed. Mate, let's get into a bit of NFL. Obviously, after the weekend's wildcard game, I was a bit excited. I texted Scope straight away. It was the first person, I've got a list down of people I want to interview this year, or Chuck that comes on the show.
Yep.
And I was like, I need someone who's got good NFL knowledge. Scope came to mind straight away, and I was like, send him a message for Scope, let's go. You can. He's like, yeah, let's do it. Mate, wildcard weekend, obviously a big weekend, especially for my Browns. Your Packers obviously had the weekend off. I'll go through some of the games here. Bills 27, Colts 24. What'd you make of the game?
Yeah, I only seen the second half because that one was in early in the morning, just before I woke up and went to work. They pushed them, and so last week I did a podcast for just a Q&A NFL podcast, and I called Colts my dark. So I had three contenders, right? I think the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Packers can win it. Those are the only three that I declared, right? But I thought, if there's one dark horse, it's the Colts. Yep. So that game was win-win for me, right? The Bills go through, they're the contenders, they're through. And if Colts knock them off, I'm a genius as well because I picked the dark horse. So I did think they were capable of beating them, despite how good Bills were going. But a few decisions probably they might regret. I think, kicking a field goal early. And Phil Rivers, he was my question mark, but he played really well.
Yep.
And they were right in it. Bills.
Josh Allen, man.
Josh Allen.
Jigs.
Like the improvement, I've always liked Josh Allen, but the amount of improvement, even in particular, like the last 8 weeks of the competition, because he started nice, then he had a little rough period there where they won maybe 1 from 4 or 2 from 4 or whatever.
Yep.
And then after that period, I think their defense picked up a little bit, and he's just been firing on all cylinders. Like they're so hard to stop. Especially when he starts running it now.
That's what I was going to say. He's a threat. His pocket presence, I feel, has been like his biggest improvement this year from last year and what he was previously like. But he's got these legs. Like, he can make plays. He's hurdled people before. Yeah, well, that Vikings game, last year or whatever. Yeah. And that was like, might have been Everson Griffin, like top tier players as well. Yeah. I think they've held him back for a reason. Yeah. But now, like, those plays are well and truly going to be put in the playbook. So. Big game this week. Definitely. Well, next game was the Rams Seahawks. Rams 30 beating the Seahawks 20, and probably a game that I actually tipped the Seahawks this game. I thought that they're made for playoffs. This team. Pete Carroll had won 10 playoff games at home in a row, but the Rams defense, obviously, they showed up on the weekend. It was interesting actually. Young Wolford, the backup quarterback. Got injured, and then Jared Goff came back in after broken his thumb only like 10 days ago. But Rams go through on the back of the defense. Yeah, mate. I tipped the Rams, so I got that one right. I had a good first day, not as good on the second day. Yep. The reason I like the Rams, the three things that I took out of it was the no crowd at Seattle. 100%.
Like you talk about home games, I think that was massive.
Yep.
Jared Goff's toughness to play through that broken thumb 12 days after surgery. Because I think they were liking that Walford, and he must have been putting some pressure on in camp, obviously to not only because of Goff's injury, but Goff was looking a bit shaky. But for Goff to play through that injury, and Jalen Ramsey, like completely shut. You could see how frustrated DK was.
Definitely.
And now they're playing my boys next week, so I'm looking forward to seeing him and Tay go head to head this week.
That'll be a match.
He'll be shadowing him for sure.
Definitely. Next game, Bucks 31 versus the football team 23. And I think it's now, like we expected this. No one really thought the football team would beat the Bucks. But it's now time for the Bucks to show up. Tom Brady, obviously the GOAT quarterback. A lot of talk's been about the Bucks all season. They've probably been a little bit inconsistent, a little bit of noise about Brady and Arians, not quite getting along. But now they've obviously got the most stacked offense in the league.
Yeah.
What do you expect from the Bucks this postseason?
If any team's going to scare my prediction of the contenders, it's probably going to be them. But the Saints have had the wood on them in this season in particular. They give them a hiding. I feel like it was 6 weeks ago. So they're firing now though. Like the last 4 or 5 weeks, I think they went through a period where everyone was like, "Oh, it's the Bucks, it's Brady, they're going to be there," and then everyone might have jumped off them because I think they lost it. Like all teams, that you go through those ebbs and flows, and then they sort of just went under the radar, but. I don't know. Like I'm going to stick to my guns and just say I got the 3, and I'm confident that if the Packers, because I believe the Packers will go through, beat the Rams, and then they'll knock over whoever they have in the NFC. But if not, I don't think any team in the NFC apart from the Packers can knock off the Chiefs, who I think are just still well and truly the top of the mountain.
Not a bad comment there. Next game, Ravens 20, Titans 13. Probably the match of the week, and actually in terms of like two teams heading into the game. Ravens, Lamar Jackson made just making plays with his legs. He showed up on the weekend, and I think the Ravens really sent a message on the weekend to say, "Hey, we're here."
Yep.
We're here. What do you make of it?
Yeah, so I tipped the Titans in this one. So like I said, this is where the bad Monday for us started. I tipped the Titans. They've done a good job of them the last couple of times. I went to overtime, beat them throughout the year, and then last year I couldn't get last year's playoffs out of my head. How they just ran it down their throat. Derrick Henry, they put a lot of pressure on Lamar. But it's a new year. It's a new Lamar. They're confident at the moment. They're like the Bucks. They've slowly had a nice back end of the season, 4 or 5 games, and they had him in a nice little position just before halftime, and then Lamar broke that play off and took it to the house. And then when they come out in the second half, it just it looked like they were still rattled from that play leading into halftime. It's like they pulled it back a little bit.
Yep.
But Ravens did a really good job on Derrick Henry. If they were going to lose, they were going to lose by losing to Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah.
And that's why from watching playoffs and NFL in the past, you pick your poison, right? Like, especially in NFL, like if you've got Derrick Henry, fuck it. Like we'll try to stop Derrick Henry,
100%.
and if you get beaten by AJ Brown and Tannehill, then so be it.
I found it interesting actually. The Titans off season last year, they franchise tagged Derrick Henry and gave the extension to Tannehill.
Yeah,
I found that.
They end up re-signing Henry eventually.
Yeah.
So, but he got they wanted to make sure I like Tannehill.
Yeah, I do too.
But if I was a defensive coordinator or whatever,
that's the way to play him. How the Ravens did on the weekend.
King Henry just ran for fucking 2,000k, fifth person in history. So you might as well try to stop him. And if you can stop Tannehill or get beaten by Tannehill, then so be it.
100%. Next game, Saints 21, Bears 9. Didn't really expect too much from the Bears this postseason. Obviously, just limped in there. The Saints head on to play the Bucks next week. Next game with the Browns. My Browns 48 versus Steelers 37. Browns had a 28-0 lead after the first quarter. Did you see the game?
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
That was crazy, mate.
Crazy.
As it was all unfolding, I don't know, you being a Browns fan, I was going, fuck, I feel like the Steelers are going to beat them still, because it was too many points in two quick succession.
I still wasn't confident at 28-0.
Yeah. So when I was like, this is a typical, this will be typical Browns. If they win in 28-0 in the first quarter and end up losing, this will just sum up the Browns. Browns being Browns.
Browns is the Browns.
Browns is the Browns. So, man, fucking a lot of people hating on the Steelers this year, Juju and the boys talking a bit of shit and didn't back it up after such a good start. I thought your boys were going to sneak home and win the AFC North about 4 weeks ago, so I tipped that on the punters club.
Yeah.
That COVID thing didn't help
No.
when they played the Jets, but a really good. I think they're giving a lot of credit to the coaches, which is well deserved, and man, Baker's got to be commended because I've had my questions on him in the past, but
I have to.
He just met one of his offensive linemen.
Yeah.
Before the game, introduced himself.
Yeah.
So he ended up coming in and having to play after you lost your Batonio. He's one of the premier guards in the competition.
Serving Browns player.
Well, there you go. So, mate, unbelievable effort from the Browns. Good to see them. They've got a tough ask next week, but it was nice to see them beat the Steelers because Steelers used to be a team that I liked, but they were, dancing on logos and shit.
But just on that, like. And obviously, as you mentioned, Juju, Claypool, like they've been, having a good time all year.
I love it.
When you're winning, like you can do anything. You get away with it. These boys are dancing on other people's logos, and the Steelers fans are absolutely loving it.
Yeah.
Opposition fans hate it. But again, it goes back to, that kind of subject we were talking about before about, personality and being yourself. And they're obviously on another level over there. But I feel like, probably not to that extent, but I feel like we're slowly heading in that direction in terms of the landscape of sports here in Australia. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. Like you said, not to that extent. I love it from Juju, right? Like, I love all that shit, but then I also love how people clap back too.
Yeah, 100%.
That's it, mate.
Play on.
Yeah, if you want to fucking layer up, then you've got to be able to cop it. And
100%.
Like, he doesn't seem too phased. Like, I haven't seen him really getting too upset about it. Like, he sort of just fucking kept quiet now, and Claypool had a little crack on TikTok or whatever. So
that was a bit of a low blow.
Yeah, so I like it. Like, it's entertaining for me, mate. Like, I love watching that because that's funny, and then seeing the Browns players like Jarvis Landry doing it,
Corvette, it's alive, seeing it, and you're so true. It's so right. Like you can dish it out, and if you get the dub, it's like we took the dub. But when you take the L, it's like you have to cop it. Like Juju has to cop it now. Like
that's it.
And that's just how you play and how it goes when you play like that. Some big games this weekend. Your Packers versus the Rams at Lambeau. I can't see the Rams doing much towards the Packers. Like you said, this matchup between Devonta Adams and Ramsey. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's going to be one to watch. Obviously tipping the Packers this weekend.
Yeah, I think they'll go right. Packers. I normally don't like to get too far ahead of myself because when they're your team. But Aaron Donald looked like he was in trouble at the back end of that game. Didn't come on in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
Looks like from a competitive standpoint, looked like he broke some ribs the way he landed. So if he doesn't play, that's a massive out. As good as the Ramsey and Adams matchup's going to be, we got so many nice weapons now at the moment. Like, our running game is really good. We've got Bobby Tonyan, our tight end, who's been making plays, and he's a bit of a mismatch. Rams defense is legit, but then I don't think that Rams offense having some of those 3 and outs that they had early against the Seahawks before they got some rhythm and they made some plays. I don't think they're going to be able to do that against us. I think we win quite comfortably.
Yep. All right. Next game, Bills versus Ravens at Buffalo. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, I think the Bills will get them as well.
Yep.
Ravens are playing well. You can't help but think if you're watching that game, you've got to just take Lamar out of the game the same way that Baltimore did it to Tennessee.
Yep.
Easier said than done, but teams have done it in the past to Lamar before. That was his first playoff win. Chargers did it the first year, and then Titans were able to do it last year. For me, I think the Bills defensively are pretty sound under the McDermott, I believe. So, I think it's going to be a close one, but I think the Bills can get them.
Next game, Chiefs versus the Browns at Arrowhead Stadium. I think the Chiefs are like $1.20, the Browns are like $4.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough ask for the Browns.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I think it might be like a weird, tricky sort of game, this one.
Yeah.
The Chiefs I still think they're the best team by a minute, but I think they've been looking ahead a little bit. So, Andy Reid's historically really good too after buys, which is tough for you guys considering the preparation that you've had and the extra preparation that they've got.
Yep.
So I think it might be. I've got this feeling it's going to be a weird sort of game.
I've
got the Chiefs.
Yeah. And the last game, Saints versus Bucks, Brady versus Breeze. As you mentioned before, Saints have kind of had the wood over the Bucks. This one's going to be an interesting one because if Saints lose, it feels like Breeze is going to retire. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think this will be the last. I think because like it's been hinting at that for like 2 or 3 years with Breeze and even Brady, but like their team, I feel like they must think that their team's there, and if not, then it's like there's got to be a changing in the guard.
Yeah.
I'm taking the Saints just purely on I can't get that last game out of my head. Like I don't know if it was just a loss, but in the manner that they lost, like they could have even lost by more. Like I remember, I think they had a fumble in the goal line or whatever. They just really had their way with them, and I think they obviously they know them well. Being in the same division, they match up well against them. Michael Thomas is back, Alvin Kamara's back.
Yep.
They've got the full complement of their offensive weapons. I love Taysom Hill, man.
That's a quick question, because if Breeze does retire, did Taysom Hill show you enough to say that he's going to be a starting quarterback for next year?
I think so. I think they'll give him a proper opportunity to compete.
Yeah.
Whether they keep Jameis around and then let them two have a proper go at it during the off season and decide. But man, it's like Lamar. Like there's so many. Yeah, they've got deficiencies, but there are so many things. Like he's a fucking beast, Taysom Hill. Like he can do things that like
he can run the ball.
He's like a faster Cam Newton back in the day because he's so big and strong, man. Like they chuck him out and play wide receiver and tight end, or he blocks and
I know.
Like he's a gun, bro. So I think he's been given the opportunity to compete, and if Breeze moves on.
Yeah, cool. All right. Who's your NFL Rookie of the Year?
Rookie of the Year, Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I agree. Who's the NFL MVP?
Rodgers, and I got money on him too, so I'm going to be collect. I played that really nicely actually. I had Mahomes throughout the year, cashed out on Mahomes when he hit the lead, and then got on Rodgers as well. So
we're on the same page. The next one, Defensive Player of the Year.
Defensive Player of the Year. This could go anyway, I suppose. But for me, the best defensive player in the competition is Aaron Donald. He could probably win it every year, but someone comes out and has statistically a pretty nice season. I think TJ Watt will be thereabouts. Looking at Jalen Ramsey's stats, I think he'll be thereabouts. And there was one more that was in the discussion, but I'm having a blank now. But I think for me it'd be Aaron Donald. I think he's been because he doesn't always get the stats too, because he gets double teamed so much. So other guys come up, and that Leonard Floyd's come over from the Bears, and he's been making plays. Aaron Donald for me.
And Super Bowl winners, but not the Packers.
Chiefs.
Right.
Well, I think the Chiefs are going to win it regardless. I think it's a tough ask for us, even as the Packers. So
Beauty. We're pretty much on the same page there, Scott. So, mate, as I mentioned at the top, obviously played professionally, for many years in the NRL and Super League. A few questions before we get into some on-the-spot questions, and then some fan questions from the Instagram Q&A. Mate, what's the biggest difference in the game? So we spoke about, I guess, off the field and social media. What's the biggest difference in the product on the field now compared to when you first started?
The pace, definitely the pace, and that's only based on fucking what's happened this year in particular. Mate, those new rule changes. I'm going to do a podcast with Henry Perinara, so I'm interested to chat to him. To him about that on Friday. Yeah. And I think I love it as a fan. I think a lot of the plays it's a lot tougher, but it was everyone said
season harder. I'll tell you that.
It does. But you look like you're going all right, mate. I seen those pictures of you and Moiser, right? You look like you're in good shape, so you'll be right, mate. I think just the pace of the game really picked up. You just got a chance to play some nice flat and fast footy.
Yeah.
Being a half yourself, I think you would probably enjoyed that. A few of the big middles starting to get a bit more juice in their legs. So. I think that's for sure the biggest change in the game.
Who's the best player you play with?
Best player, mate. I always say, it's a pound for pound thing. And I played my best footy next to Kieran Foran. Just how tough he was, the position that he played, the fact that we were next to each other all the time, and like I said, I was able to play my better footy because. He made it so much easier for me. Yep. He never put me in compromising positions.
Yep.
And just a class teammate, good bloke, just ticked all the boxes.
Awesome. Why does everyone hate Manly?
It's because I don't think they had him as much anymore because they haven't been as successful. It's like the sort of maybe Melbourne might have taken that now. Like everyone sort of hates on Melbourne a little bit. Or the Roosters. They were so good for so many years, and they've got such a good culture over there. It's when you get over there, I hated Manly as well when I played at Parramatta, and then I got over there and I'm like, fuck, I love all the boys here. This is me. Like, this is so like everyone's we stick to ourselves, like we're in our own little bubble. Like did you see with the COVID, they've got the COVID bubble, like they're in their own little area. It takes a minute for people to come visit you, so you end up just staying back in the beaches and doing your thing and becoming really close. We had a real close knit group there and won a lot of games and had a little niggle about us too, which I liked. I didn't probably have that at Parramatta, but once I went to Manly, I started talking a bit of shit because we were winning games, which didn't go down well with some people because I was probably seen as mediocre and should have been talking that stack. But I loved it, mate. So I got the opportunity to win a few games and standing behind the boys and talking about shit. So I liked it.
Yeah, I love that. You just mentioned Manly's culture and something for myself. Obviously, looking from the outside in, you know, when I first came into the NRL, there were guys like the Stewart brothers, Jamie Lyon, Steve Maddai, Anthony Watmo, and it just looked like Manly were just such a tight knit group and just the culture, like it was like you feed Manly. Well, I feed Manly when I was playing when I was a youngster. I was like, man, we're playing Manly this weekend, like. And we at the Sharks, like, we've had a poor record against Manly up until I think this year and last year. We've won a few games against them, but prior to that, like they always had the wood over us. And so, what do you think it is about that culture, or back when you were playing with those boys specifically that you play with? How did they create, I guess, that that culture? Was it just being successful?
Yeah, I was scared of them as well, mate. So the thing is, like, when I rocked up, those boys, the guys you named, the Stewart brothers, Chocky, Stevie Maddai, Jamie Lyon, all those sorts of guys, the club was well and truly run by the senior boys. It was buy into it and do the right thing. If you buy into the culture, and they're not rah-rah guys, it's like, it was just known, like, they didn't have to say anything. It was just like, all right, these boys are... you got guys like Jason King in that too, who's I always talk about him in high regard. Guy that probably
welcome to the NRL now.
Is he? Okay, yeah, because he was a man, like, really smart footy player. I think he's got a law degree now.
Yeah, like I think he's pretty up there with.
Yeah, so Kinga, I loved guys like Kinga. They all those guys, for as good as many accomplishments as they had, they didn't. You'd never think it like the way they were. So. Very like humbling, but you sort of knew where you were in the pecking order in the most respectful way. You buy into it, we'll win games, we'll have a good time, we party together, we do all that sort of shit together. And that just bred this culture that was successful for so many years, and it'd probably been passed on from like guys like Steve Menzies and Cliffy Lyons and all those guys, Jeff Tuvey. So there was a really good culture there, mate, and those guys just instilled it in us.
Yeah, mate, awesome. So, Scope, after your NRL career, you went over to Super League for a few years. How was your time in the Super League? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I did. I have a bit of a cheesy grin. So there was so many life lessons in it.
Yeah.
Catalans I loved Catalans. South of France.
Who wouldn't?
I did a bit of partying over there, mate. I'm still single. I was single throughout those years. I just broke up with my missus before I went over there. Really enjoyed my 2 years at Catalans in particular. Can't recommend it highly enough. Got a lot of respect for Steve McNamara, who's the coach over there now. Yep. It's a weird little culture over there. Like everyone knows who you are, like, which is weird in this little town, but you don't, because you don't speak French. You sort of sometimes don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So they all love you when you're killing it, but then they start talking. They start speaking in English, like when things are going well, and then when you lose and they start speaking to you in French, I'm like, Beardy, what's
he saying?
I said, what's going on here? So, loved it. Made some really good mates at Catalans, but in particular at Wakey. My 2 years at Wakefield. Yeah. Don't know if I can recommend it to all the boys in terms of like facilities. A little bit. It's a real workman's class club.
Yep.
A lot of history there. Some really good people that are running it, but like they're pretty honest in terms of funding and sponsors and all that sort of stuff. It's we're nowhere near, like, they've done a really good job actually, considering, like, the last year's wasn't successful, but I think we come fifth 3 years in a row, considering we're, like, not even close to the salary cap. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, it's the owner takes, like, this sort of money ball approach to recruiting players, and he's, like, way under the cap and whatnot. But in terms of, like, guys that I speak to with footy, like, I've got a group of probably 6 or 7 of them in a WhatsApp group that we message each other all the time. I'm still really close with them. I FaceTime them all the time. I think the thing is with that team in particular, and living in Wakey and Leeds and shit, like, there's nothing else you can do.
Yeah.
Right. So I'd go and travel any chance I got, which is another part of going over the Super League. If you go to a club, you want to probably go to one of the bigger clubs.
Yeah.
There's top 4, Wigan, St Helens, Leeds, Warrington, Catalans if you want to go to France or whatever.
Yeah.
But the opportunity to travel like I did and have some fun but when I was at Wakey, like, mate, we spent every minute together. We'd go to some after games. We'd drink at the after match function together, and then there's a pub down the corner that used to look after us. So we'd go down to this pub, sit around, start singing songs like they do over there, which is done. It's probably not as popular over here, but they'll chuck on the karaoke machine, and the owner would just he'd fuck off, and he'd go home, stay in there, come back in the morning, and might whip up a bacon egg roll, something like that. Bacon egg sarnie, and we're still there at 8 o'clock in the morning. So. At the Graziers Inn, I believe it was. So made some really good mates from that. I think I grew up a lot over there too. The opportunity. I lived by myself for 3 of those 4 years. I ended up learning a lot about myself, having a bit of fun, but maturing up a little bit as well. But especially in the back end of those, because I partied a lot the first year, and then I sort of just realised, fuck, I'm getting a bit older. I can't be doing this sort of stuff. Yeah. And then I attest, like, doing all this podcast stuff to being over there by myself, because what it did, it took me out of my comfort zone. Like I said with the Manly stuff early on, I was, like, a little bit shy of all the media sort of stuff, but getting the opportunity, when I was living by myself the last year, I'd make a point to go speak to a stranger every day. I was trying to do that, and I dropped off some days, but I could go to the local cafe by myself and try to speak to the cafe owner, or
I love that.
Someone that I've seen every day, or even if I was at the gym, I'd be in the sauna speaking to some old guy from Bulgaria or something like that, Romania, just little things like that. And I think those are pretty cool things that I pulled away from it.
Special.
Yeah,
100%. That's unreal. Great life experience. All right, Scope. Let's move on to the next topic, and I'm going to put Scope on the spot here.
Love it.
Scope on the spot, mate. Who wins the NRL in 2021?
I don't want to be boring. I don't want to be boring. I think the Storm go back to back, eh?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Who's not making the 8 in 2021?
Not making the 8 that we're in it, or
Just
not
anyone not making the 8.
No, I'm not looking at you guys. There's some answers that could be.
This is the easy toss-ups, but
yeah. Let's go. Who got the spoon last year?
Jeez, I can't even remember. Broncos, sorry. Yeah, Broncos got the spoon. Bulldogs came second last.
Yeah, Broncos aren't making the 8 next year. I think, obviously, because it's a rebuilding phase now. Losing for Feeder. Kevy's going to have to come in and change the culture, which he seems to be doing. I think the squad's a bit young, and they're just missing something. I don't know.
They'll be good one day.
Like, they got a couple of nice young players. I did, so I'm going to do the spotlight thing for YKTR, and love Xavier Coates. I love Tony Staggs, Jordan Ricky, obviously Payne Haas. Some really nice. All these players, mate, are under 23.
Yeah.
Under 23, 24. So in a couple of years, going through this heartache, they'll be better for it.
Who wins the Dahlia Medal in 2021?
I just did an episode of Skipper and the Prez, Cam Munster. So I said to him, I asked him, I said, well, what's the goal considering fucking how well you went last year? And he said he'd like to win the Daily M. Yeah. So I'm going to back my boy.
And last one, who wins the local derby in round 1? Sharks versus Dragons.
Sorry, Mutters. Sorry, Normie.
Normie versus Moiser.
Normie, yeah. I think the Dragons are going to have a tough year as well. That's why I had a little smirk on my face about it. I can't back you, Mutters. He'll be filthy when he sees this. But yeah, I like your guys. I like the way you're a bit patchy last year, but
Definitely.
I think there's a lot more there in your squad. I think in particular the senior players that the Dragons lost a few players, like Frizz moves on.
Yep.
James Graham halfway through the year, they lost a lot of experience. Corbin Sims even. A lot of those guys that are gonna need some younger guys to step up now, and I just think you're better suited to start the year with all the experience that you got.
Yeah, cool. All right, last bit, Scope, before we let you go, brother. As always, do a fan Q&A from Instagram, the story. Got a few guys who've sent in some questions. Thank you, everyone who's sent in questions. We'll try and flip.
I didn't know how these were going to go, so I sent in 7 myself.
First one, Brad McCaskill. Quick update on the Scopes rolled Omar.
Omar
for trials or
Slonical.
what?
Back for trials, yeah. So, like I said, yeah, I think I've rolled it that many times with scar tissue. I'll be right. I think I'm going to try to do the Kiddies Run Club next week on Wednesday with me mates, which is Bronny Hills next week. So yeah, I'll be sweet, mate.
Next one is from Tihu Mariek. Do you think Trevor Lawrence, no matter what, is the number one pick in next year's NFL draft?
Yeah.
Agreed. Next one. Let's have a look at what we got here. Jaff Lava 03. Hey lads, what do you see as the next new trend in the NRL on the field?
Next new trend on the field.
Well, I don't know if this attests for on the field, but before we started the podcast, we spoke about something the YKTR Sports posted the other day with the camera in the end zone.
Yes.
And the boys were quite talking about obviously massively successful in the NFL with no crowds, obviously celebrating touchdowns and that. But is that something you'd like to see?
I'd love to see that, mate. Like I love, like I said before, speaking on the juju stuff. I like the carry on.
Yep.
I think if the boys had the opportunity to be creative, I think a lot of there's old heads that probably wouldn't like it. I just put up something the other day, and I'm like, fuck the old heads. Like they're old anyway. Like, the kids are the future. So
yeah,
I'd love to see all that stuff, mate. That's a giggle.
Next one is from Kieran Dunning. Kieran Dunning, sorry, my bad. Hey Skipper, what's one reason the Lakers can't go back to back?
I think there's a nice balance in the Lakers. I believe are deserved favourites.
Yeah.
They got even better from last year's championship, but
definitely
there's still one big, like LeBron's getting older and he's been able to keep himself in a great spot, but it's a long season. I think the scheduling of the season helped the Lakers last year with LeBron. He got a little bit extra rest time.
Yeah.
Coming to the bubble. I believe the competitions. There's going to be some competition for him with LA Clippers if they get him and whatnot. But deserved favourites and probably going to need a major injury to stop them from going back to back.
Next one is from Cobbler95. Scope, do you reckon the Niners should trade for Deshaun Watson or stick with Jimmy G and try draft a rookie QB?
If they get the opportunity to get Deshaun Watson, for me, already they're the favourites. Like if they could somehow pull that off, I've seen that floated around, but I don't know how that happens. If they give up Jimmy G and fucking 2 or 3 first round picks, I'd do it in a heartbeat if I love Deshaun Watson. I think what he's done with the lack of weapons and how crazy what Bill O'Brien did to that team. I've seen that thing where JJ Watt was apologising to him. Fuck, that's that's how high of opinion I have of him, and obviously his teammates do. So if he was, I already believe 49ers for me fully fit are the best team in the NFC.
Yep.
I declared them this year. I've seen nothing that makes me change my mind on that, even though because all the injuries that they had this year. And I still think they won maybe 7 games, 7 or 8 games or whatever.
Those are all their best defensive players, yeah.
George Kittle, Jimmy Garoppolo, their running backs are always, for whatever reason, they're always banged up.
Yeah.
Nicky Bosa's a fucking gun, man. So if once they start the season next year, unless there's any crazy injuries, 49ers are my favourite.
Got a good coach too.
Yeah, I love Shanahan. The year before, I backed him to win the Super Bowl, and I got him at crazy. I think it was like 36-1 or something like that. And it's because I love Shanahan and what he did the year before with because he had second or third string quarterback. You know how Jimmy was injured the year before as well. So I love Shanahan.
All right, Scope. Last question is from Harrison_Lindsay20. Any improvements to the kennel since 10 in the can potty?
Yes. We cleaned it up.
Yep.
So we talked about our hygiene and our cleanliness at home. It honestly got out of control. We got heaps of shit at the front. We still need the shoe rack, which we spoke about. We cleaned the lounge room. Me and Normie cleaned up the lounge room, and we picked up the lounge the other day. There was a fucking dead frog underneath our lounge. That's how filthy our surroundings had got. So, we cleaned it all up. The boys are doing a good job. Chico was into Simi last night about when he's at home not doing anything because he hasn't worked. He doesn't fucking do anything. So he's got to be more accountable. We cleaned up our laundry situation. And Chico's gone and he's a new addition to the kennel, and he's gone and bought a few things for us. So, it's all looking positive at the kennel. And we'll talk about that. That's going to be a fortnightly segment that we do for my podcast, which is fun.
Love it. Well, Scope, brother, mate, thank you so much for coming on today. Really, really appreciate it, brother.
No worries, brother. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. And guys, make sure you go and check out the Scope podcast on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, all that stuff. Just search the Scope. It'll come up. And that's it for today's episode, guys. That's the first episode for the Chad Townsend Show 2021. We'll be back throughout the year with a few more episodes. So make sure you check them out. Subscribe. Laters.